Hello, I'm Joanne Gallagher, your Think.Future podcast host. Today I'm talking to Associate Professor Henrik Ny from Blekinge Institute of Technology in the south of Sweden. He is excited to tell us about the potential of magnetic levitation technology as a sustainable mode of transport for the future. This podcast is brought to you by Arcons, a global leader pioneering solutions and services to the construction and manufacturing industries to support digital transformation for the built environment and smart manufacturing. Visit arcons.world to learn more about how Arcons are helping organizations design, build and solve through digitalization. From Arcons to you, welcome to our Think Future podcast series. Each week we'll share conversations with industry leaders from around the world to find out how they're thinking future. Subscribe to Arcons Think Future to access more episodes, interviews and profiles. Associate Professor Henrik Ny received his doctorate at Blekinge University of Technology, or BTH as it's known in the south of Sweden. Henrik started the regional electromobility venture Green Charge, which he ran from 2010 to 2015. This program engaged around 50 partners and turned over 100 million Swedish kroner in research, working time and investments. Henrik now runs the SustainTrans team within the Department of Strategic Sustainable Development at BTH, with a focus on research and the rapid transition to sustainable transport and energy systems. Hello Henrik, welcome to the program. Great to see you.
Hello, thank you. Great to be here.
It's been a while since I saw you last. Tell us about your academic background and how we met and what you're working with at the moment.
Yeah, I'm an associate professor at the Blekinge Institute of Technology in South Sweden. And I focus on transport and energy systems. And I run a team with making different transition projects and so on together with stakeholders. And we met, you were my students back in the day. But now we have moved to different places, I guess. And of course, we met also recently in the reunion at the university.
That was wonderful. 20 years to see all of those alumni come back. And all of us are all over the world now doing our work. So your particular achievements, you've achieved a lot in the sector with energy to do with transport. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I focused a lot on regional transitions with multi-stakeholder engagement and so on. So we have different you can say systems perspectives. We bring them in and we build maps of how things are connected. And we have had more than 10 years of regional projects here together with local authorities and companies and so on. So you could say that also it means that we have a good, very good relationship with these, both regional but even nationally as well.
So a specific project in the region, what was that about? Can you tell us briefly?
About 10 years ago, we had the first major project. We call it Green Charge. And it was about electromobility and how to work together between different stakeholders to get through this catch-22. You don't have enough cars to justify the charging systems, and you don't have enough charging systems to justify buying cars and so on. So we try to bring different stakeholders together, both with research and also having companies coming in offering to with a discount to build these systems, and municipalities offering to buy some cars each and some charging systems and so on. So we had a quite successful introduction. Back then we had about 500 electric cars in Sweden, and now it's I think it's 500,000 or something. It's a few 100,000 at least.
Congratulations. And is it only Sweden, or has it spread to other Nordic countries?
Well, I mean, Norway is regardless of this, Norway has been ahead for a long time. So they are working very hard with different incentives and so on. But you could say that the approach that we used to involve stakeholders working with systems and We have also continued with follow-up projects, and internationally now we went to Chicago last year to present our simulation models and so on, and this is the network of systems analysis globally, and we have now very good contacts with some of the thought leaders in this field in the world. So that's very exciting.
It sure is. And now you're working on an even more exciting project. Tell us about this conference that you're chairing in a couple of weeks. By the time this goes on air, it'll actually be the time for the conference.
Yeah, it's called MagLev2024, and it's about magnetic levitation technologies. And I think it's the 26th installation of this conference. It's been going on since the 60s, and it's a big honor for us to have been given the task to arrange it. We had to fight against several big cities, Valencia and some German cities and so on. And in the end, a small town in south of Sweden won. So that's really exciting. And now we are going to hold this conference in Malmö and near Copenhagen. And we're looking forward to it.
What are the dates of the conference?
It starts with a sort of a cocktail opening the day before, so it's like a light start. And that's the 18th. And then we have the main conference days is the 19th and 20th of September. And then we are trying to arrange some study visits on the 21st. So it's sort of a long weekend, you could say. And
magnetic levitation sounds really futuristic. Is there any examples in the world at the moment?
Yeah, there are a few. Of course, there are many different types of applications. The most known, I think, is trains, magnetic trains. And China has operated a magnetic train for almost 20 years in Shanghai, between Shanghai and Shanghai Airport. And that's a development of a German technology from the 1990s. So Germany also started some test tracks back in the day, but they have, for different reasons, they have not pursued forward last 10 years or so. But the big thing is Japan and the big track they are building between Tokyo and Osaka. And that's a high-tech earthquake-proof maglev system.
The train in France, the Train de Grande Vitesse, is that the same technology or is that something else?
No, that's something else. That's so the difference is that maglev is without the it's hovering above the track. It's not in contact with the track. So there are two magnets that are repelling each other, so they are lifting, and that means that there is no friction, and there's a lot of different benefits from that. I can go into that later, but and then the TGV, the Train de Grande Vitesse, that's traditional wheels on rails, so they have these contact points. But it's very fast, of course, but it's also carries with it the difficulties with friction and noise and so on that is less difficult for the magnetic train.
So magnetic fields repelling each other, is that how it hovers across over the rail? Okay. So this particular conference you're chairing, it's very important to you. Tell us why and what's particularly interesting about it.
The whole reason why I found it interesting to try to arrange this conference was that they were very open to taking a new look at this technology from a sustainability perspective, and this is what we focus on. So traditionally, this conference has been a lot about technical details about how can you make this magnetic field work and how can you make all the things work. But we also take more of a societal perspective here in this conference, where we look at ecological, economic, and social consequences of future transport systems with and without maglev. So that's what I think is very important to broaden and make it more relevant. I think it's also what is required for this technology to get a chance in the future, that you don't only look at the technical details, but also see whether this could be a building block in a very attractive future.
I presume the audience will be very interested. Who's going to be there?
For the first time, we will actually get these huge project from Japan. They will come with a delegation. So that's very interesting, and we will get some updates from there. And then there's a big Chinese contingent as well. They have a lot of development going on in China as well. So Japan and China are the leaders. South Korea has a lot of going on in Brazil and so on. But and then so there's a lot of researchers and technical experts. There are some more societally oriented researchers as well, not so many, but a few. And then some interested, some people who are interested in this field. And we hope to have a quite broad and diverse crowd.
Can you name some of the presenters there? What will people expect to hear and see?
Yeah, okay. We don't have a fixed name yet, but there will be a keynote from this Japanese project. JR Central is the name of the company that builds this MagLev. But on the website, we will publish this as we go on. So that's one. And then we have a colleague of mine, actually my PhD student. She has worked in UN Habitat and with sustainable mobility and societal planning. And now she's doing her PhD with us in that area. So we have her coming in to give a perspective of African perspective on this. Could MagLev be interesting for Africa in the future? So she will ask questions in that direction. And that's interesting. And we also have people from the construction sector in Sweden. The major Swedish sustainability effort right now in the construction sector, the leader of that project is coming as well. And it started in the same town that we have the conference. So he will be there. And so those are some examples. I think it will be very exciting.
We'll be back to the conversation in just a minute. In the meantime, here's a little bit more about Arcons. Arcons has a mission to advance the efficiency, quality and profitability of project outcomes for its customers, providing best-in-class technology augmented by its in-house developed IP and a full suite of professional services. Arcons is trusted by over 40,000 customers globally. If you're looking for a digitalization and sustainability-focused partner to help you achieve your goals, join the thousands of construction and manufacturing customers globally who choose Arcons as their digitalization partner. With more than 50 locations around the world, Arcons can connect you to the right technologies and expertise so you can improve your competitive position and increase profitability. Arcons has an industry expert to help you navigate the best pathway forward wherever you are on your digitalization and sustainability journey. Visit arcons.world to find out more. And now back to our conversation. You mentioned that it's very exciting because of the focus on sustainability. Can you unpack that a little bit more? What is sustainable and attractive about it?
As we talk about sustainability, we talk about the sustainable future. It's a future that we can have. I mean, if it's not sustainable, we cannot survive. So that it's sort of a yes/no question for us as we define it. It's not a good to have; it's essential. And of course, then we have worked with that, how to define that, and when we look at MagLevs, we will need to compare that with other futures and see. It is mainly about emissions and climate-related impacts, but it's also about surface use in society and also socially acceptable. Can it help people in different ways and so on, and economics. So we take all of those aspects of sustainability and look at MagLev then and compare it with other alternatives. Yeah, and if you want me to move on and say what the answers are for MagLev, I can do that as well. But that's sort of the kind of analysis we do.
Well, I was going to ask you actually about the distinct advantages and, in context of the existing infrastructure, would there be many changes needed and so on? If you could talk about that, it'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, okay, to say some of the general, as I've told you, it's a frictionless system, basically. So that brings with it several benefits, sustainability benefits. With less friction, there is less noise. So you can actually build the more easily blend it into an urban infrastructure because you don't need to have the safety distance so much from the track because it's not going to bring so much noise. And then there is also less energy use. And then for every comparison between MagLev and other traditional train, it's always less energy use at the same speed. So if you have 100 kilometers per hour or 100 miles per hour MagLev, it's always less energy use than a traditional train. But then, of course, MagLev has twice the top speed as most traditional trains, like 500 kilometers per hour or more. So it could still use more energy than a traditional train. But then I think the relevant sustainability comparison is not between other trains, but between MagLev and domestic flights. So domestic flights is always going to be more energy consuming, even if it's an electric flight, because you need to get up in the air and you need to. Yeah, it's quite competitive, and then able to shift probably shifting consumers and travelers from less energy efficient transport like personal cars and domestic flights into these high-speed, high-efficiency trains. So that's partially answer to your question. You had also a question about whether it blends well with the traditional infrastructure, right? Should I just jump into that directly?
What I'm getting at is, like, at some point, are we replacing that infrastructure, or are we using it in a new way?
I think the latter, actually, and that's I'm glad you're asking this question because I have understood that this is something that many people get wrong. That even I spoke to Swedish politicians at the highest level, and he was very friendly to me by saying what was his core argument, because then I know, and I know him since before, but this thing that they say that MagLev cannot easily be integrated with the existing train system because it's a new type of track and so on. They want the tracks to be used by different trains, and they see that as a way to economize, to have dual use and so on. But I would argue that that's a flawed argument, that what has actually happened in Germany, for example, where in the end, they decided to not go for MagLev for various reasons. I can go into that later. But they decided to have one track with many different trains on it, in line with this idea. And what happened then was that this track was not good for any train. It was a mixture of different needs that didn't get met. And it was so difficult to maintain this super complicated track that they had to lower the top speed. So in the end, they didn't have high-speed trains. And so that's the example showing that it doesn't work to have everything on the same track. And then there's a counter example showing that it does work to have separate tracks. And that's the Japanese Shinkansen. For many years, Japanese has had a very successful application where they built new high-speed trains on separate tracks. And they actually become very time precise in that way. There is no conflict. They know it's just one train going from point A to point B. And it has really exploded. It's been very successful. And I would argue that is how a magnetic train would work as well, or should work, because it has the benefits of the Japanese Shinkansen, but then it has maybe 30% higher speed as well. So that's how I think you miss out on the bigger picture often. And what would also happen when if we build a separate track next to the existing one, then you can actually release some of the pressure on the existing tracks, because then what happens in Sweden now is that the existing track needs to be maintained, and we have no capacity to grow on the existing tracks. It's full capacity. So without new tracks, we will have a very strong growth restriction there, and freight will be restricted, and maybe freight will go via trucks instead. And this is not so good from a sustainability perspective. So if we could have a separate track and relieve some pressure on the existing ones, then we could expand the freight quite significantly on trains, and then take some of the truck deliveries via train instead. So if you broaden the perspective like that, you see many sustainability benefits.
Especially for the social side, where cities are calmer because there's not trucks going in and out of the core of the city. That makes sense. Let's say you put down new tracks parallel to the existing tracks. You can use green steel and, more modern, sustainable materials, right? For the train itself and for the track and for the parts, the components that need to go into it. Have you been thinking about all of that as the system yourself, or?
Yeah, I actually asked some questions to the engineers that have worked with this for a long time. What is the recipe for 1 kilometer track? How many kilograms of different things would go into that? And that's an interesting exercise. And then we compared traditional high-speed rail versus MagLev. And one thing you see, among other things, is that you need only half as much concrete when you use the MagLev system, because those tracks are, as I told you, when you have these heavy trains from traditional trains with wheels, and they need to be heavy because otherwise they will fly off the track. They need to be heavy. So there's a minimum weight they need to have so that they don't get unstable at high speed. But MagLev is wrapped around the track. I don't know if you have seen this, but in many cases you have like the train is like, if you see it in profile, the train is like this, and then it goes under the track, and it's not in contact. It's floating around the track like this. So it's virtually impossible for it to fly off because it's already wrapped around the track.
Sort of like an envelope, but not touching.
Yeah, like an envelope, not touching. And then that means that, and another thing is that since MagLev is, the whole train is lifting uniformly, there's no single point of contact is with the wheel. So it means that the weight is distributed over the whole length of the train rather than just towards the wheels, right? So it also means, all in all, this means that there is less pressure on the track. So you can build a track with less materials and less metal and steel and concrete. So we found that actually there is a big material advantage there for MagLev if you build bridge tracks like that. So
you want to say something about all of those different advantages?
No, but I think some key advantages of MagLev would be, for example, that with almost twice the top speed as traditional trains, you can serve a bigger area without losing time. And there's also almost twice as high acceleration and deceleration from a magnetic train, which means that they can stop at more places along the track without losing too much time. So actually, MagLev is sometimes said to only favor huge cities and so on. But actually, it could serve a larger intercity area as well, because you could visit more places without losing time.
Exactly. Very interesting.
So that's one thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, if you have it on a separate track, as I mentioned, you would be much less prone to delays. And you could untangle some of the problems we have in Sweden, for example, is that we have a crowded track, many different types of trains on the same track. And if there is a delay somewhere, it just propagates through the whole system. And some, basically at the end of the day, there will always be delays because something always happens somewhere. And with a separate track, you could more easily isolate it and make sure that it will be on track, on time.
Pardon the pun.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. So I was going to ask you about what your particular contribution is from the BTH perspective. You mentioned to me offline about a roadmap. Would you like to tell us about that?
Yeah, I think what we have done is that we've done a strategic sustainability assessment of maglev versus alternatives, and we have put up a systematic comparison because it's often difficult when you don't compare the relevant things. So we try to say it's not maglev versus other technologies. It's a future where we use maglev and have trains and have flights and so on and have cars. And another future where we don't have maglev, but we also have trains, but the proportions of the different transport modes will be different. So in a maglev system, we have less need for domestic flights, less need for personal cars. So that's some of the major benefits, that it changes the whole transport system. And as you were referring to, we when we do this, we have built a simulation software also based on this strategic approach. We call it the Roadmapper, and we are expanding this to be able to build sort of a dashboard simulator where you can also yourself as a decision maker can drag and drop more or less. You can pull different sliders and see what happens if you change different assumptions. What happens to the results? This is still under development, and we did a initial report where we put up these different comparisons. We made a first assessment, and I think we have a sort of a colored assessment where you say green is good, red is bad, and then there are some colors in between. But where you can see that about 20 different factors that we look at: socially, ecologically, economically, and even user technically. So those different factors we compared for the different types of transport futures. And I think you can learn quite a lot from this comparison, and we wrote a report about it. We would like to take this further and go deeper into simulations and build these simulators. We're not there yet, we're not ready yet, but we are moving forward in that direction.
So let's move forward in time and assume that you are there yet. You made it to that point, and now you're ready to begin. So worst case and best case, how long would it take, assuming everyone agrees and they want this technology? How long would it take, the shortest time to get this on track going? Or how long? Was there a window of time? Do you think it's a 5-year project, or?
I think realistically to build a new software service it's probably like a 5-year project, yes. But the problem is that we don't have so much time also. I mean, the decisions that need to be taken are very urgent. So I think what we will do is that we will present some lighter versions of this within a year. And then we will advance that further, because we cannot wait for 5 years, even though I think that is what it will take to get something really solid out there. But we already work with our region and municipalities, and we have some interest from both here and other places in Sweden. We have presented this as conferences, and I think many like the idea of having something that could do these things, make these kinds of comparisons. I think there was a decision maker, a politician, saying that, and also the civil servants that want to convince politicians and talk to politicians that it's necessary to have something that is not just your feeling or your gut feeling. It's something that can be presenting the research in a more consistent way, so that you can't keep everything in your head. We try to facilitate that process.
It needs to be data driven and proven to be a benefit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So when it comes to digitalization to support this development, how would you see that working? And BIM technology, etc.
Yeah, I mean, we are trying to build something that can work off official data. Like it's not going to be easy to make our own assessments of everything. I think that's not going to be practical. So we need to be able to use statistics from authorities and so on. And then the idea is that we will have a team that develop some calculators that will run on official statistics. Yeah, so there is a balanced act you need to take there to see how much. Of course, you can make a perfect model, but it will take forever, and then the answer will be quite complicated if you have everything in there. So you need to. The difficulty is to find the right pedagogical level there where you can take a very complicated thing and put it into a more simple way, but still have what you need to make a meaningful decision.
BTH is known for digitalization as well, right? Expertise. Mm-hmm. So you have all of those tools to apply to the project and simulate or test, get the data. That's great.
We also, I can also say that we went to Chicago last year. We also have now a direct contact with the software provider that we work on a software, and we have direct contact with them to stay in touch with. Do we need new features and so on? We can also directly talk to them.
So going back to the conference, what are the outcomes you expect from the conference on an international scale?
To raise the awareness about maglev systems, and it's an aging field. There's a lot of engineers that were active from the 90s and maybe even earlier. So they are a bit worried that they will die out. So they hope to also engage a new generation. So also with this broadening up towards societal issues, not only the technical issues, is also a way to stay relevant, to have a chance to rejuvenate the talk about maglev systems. So
when you think future, Henrik, about technology and shaping the future of sustainable transport using this particular magnetic levitation technology, what excites you the most?
Maglev is one of those key technologies that can make a quantum leap in a way in efficiency, a bit like going from traditional gasoline cars to electric cars. This is a similar improvement potential. And you could argue that, but we are already building the existing high-speed rails and they're not even built everywhere. Yeah, but China has built more high-speed rail than any country. And nevertheless, they are already looking at maglev as making it even better. So I think that big potential improvement is what excites me. And then, of course, it needs to be balanced against, do we even need you build it in the right place and where we really need it, and so on. But it's going to be an efficiency increase, definitely.
That's excellent. So the conference is coming up on the 18th. Did you have a call to action? Would you like to... This will be put out on air on the 18th. Would you like to say something to anyone who's listening in?
Yes. I would be very happy to welcome as many as possible of you in Malmö, Sweden, the 18th to the 21st. Of course, I know that it's many who will not be able to make the trip. We will present, there will be a book coming out of this conference as well, proceedings. And I'm not sure yet if probably we will not have live streaming, but I will look into that. But what could also happen is that I think we might even have some, there will be some press coverage as well. So we hope to make an impact, and even maybe some TV coming and record some TV shows related to this.
So if anyone is really, really excited and has to talk to you, what's the best way to catch you now in the lead up to the conference?
Well, there is the conference website, MagLev2024.com, and there is everything. And there is also in the contact section, you have our emails. There is a MagLev2024 email. If you send to that one, we can always take it further from there. So MagLev2024.com, that's where we have everything.
Well, this is very exciting, Henrik. I wish you all the best. I'm sure you've got a whole team of people working very hard, and you're a busy man, so I'm going to let you go, but I hope you keep us in the loop and see what happens next.
Thank you.
It'd be great to have you back sometime if things progress, or I'm sure they will. So until we talk next time, take care. This podcast was brought to you by Arcons. Arcons is leading the digital transformation of the construction and manufacturing industries, providing best-in-class technology solutions from world-leading partners and their own in-house development software from the Arcons B-Smart portfolio for building, infrastructure and manufacturing, and a full suite of professional services. Arcons is a company that cares about creating and building a better world. Together we are working with industry and environmental experts, providing forums and platforms through our Arcons Think community to create conversations that matter to our future generations. We invite you to join in the conversation and participate in our Think community. Like and subscribe to our Think.Future newsletter to stay up to date with the latest innovations and conversations as we advance the digital journey for construction and manufacturing around the world. You can download our podcasts at arcons.world or from your favorite podcast platform. From Arcons Think Future, thanks for listening.